A draw down at Exeter has dropped us into the relegation area with just 2 wins from 11 games played and 4 defeats in that time. Another disappointing performance has left many fans asking the very same question: how much longer can this continue? Joining us on Codcast episode 435 is Ross wearing a beanie.
Hello.
Um,
No
Ross,
cod.
can I? Yeah, Codcast. Yeah,
No cod on
no.
my beanie though. That's the only problem. It's not a cod hat, but like we'll get there. It's an angry raccoon going for a can of Moxie, the local soda. Anyway, you were going to ask me a question.
No, I was gonna tell you a secret.
All right, tell me. Well, all right. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. What-
I hate football.
Ben, for the listeners who aren't on the YouTube podcast right now, is wearing a Wales training jacket, is it? It looks very
Yeah, he's got
comfortable.
double down. It's a
Bright
corset.
red. So everyone knows when you're in the store exactly what it is that you're wearing. But they don't need to see the badge. They don't need to
No,
see the dragon
no,
or
no.
the wyvern or whatever it is.
Wyvern.
Wyvern, yeah, wyvern. I don't know.
Wyvern. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, you just got to double down sometimes, haven't you?
you
And
do. Yeah. I just showed you your country as much respect as Mark Gay did in the first 5 minutes of that game.
I just turned it off. I
I'm not
literally after the
surprised,
third
mate.
goal, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God!" I just turned it off and went away. I thought, "What's the
You
point?"
you already have a hard enough job, watching this every week, and then you're subjected to that too. I could totally understand that you were.
Horrid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least you're leaning into the skid, and we appreciate you for that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're doubling down on this pod as well. We've had some mostly positive feedback. I mean, we're never going to tell you how to think. We obviously have opinions because we're human beings. And it seems to me that these days you have an opinion that someone doesn't agree with, and instantly you're wrong. The art of debate has very much floundered across the world, I think, over the last few years. So we're back with another pod. We are officially, I
Was
guess
that
we're
another
hunting.
fish pun? I'm just checking. You went floundered there. I'm just
No, it wasn't. It
wondering.
was it was
You know,
accidental actually.
no,
It was
okay,
accidental.
okay.
But we're at this point with 11 games played. 2 wins in that time, as I said in the intro. We're officially hunt out, aren't we?
Well, I think so. Yeah. Hang on a minute. Have we finished the intro? Have we got through?
No, I haven't done the thanks yet. I'll do the thanks and pleases.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, yeah, sorry, I just thought that sounded quite reviewy, but
yeah, no, it did. Sorry,
I,
sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
that's all right,
Okay.
that's all right. I
Um,
got confused there for a second, but no, yeah, I think that's about where we're at. But anyway, we'll get there. And you know what? Football, the main thing I've been thinking over the last few days is that football is a game of opinions, and now is the time for opinions as it will be. But hey,
mm,
isn't it nice that we're, talking about opinions about what's going on the pitch and not what's going on off it?
it-
So,
do you
yeah,
know
there
what?
you go.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
Thank you to the Amazons for their track, My Blood. Thank you to Voldemar and his team for sponsoring us yet again, as ZC said films. Voldemar's latest series is available to, I was going to say download. We're downloading. You're downloading us listening to this. Sky Arts Most, isn't it?
Yes, Arts Most. And then also, I've remembered the name of the podcast that he does, so I can tell you about that now. It's called Waldy and Bendy. It's quite popular on YouTube. You can find it, don't click off now, but after you've watched this YouTube video, you can go and find that one. But yeah, Waldy and Bendy, another one of Waldy is Pursuits, an art podcast. So it's good. I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, check it out.
Okay. We're going to get into the review. Right, 1-1 down at Exeter.
One
I
all
mean,
down.
1-1 down.
You sound like my dad. My dad's a Southampton fan, as I've talked about before, and sometimes he'll come home and he'll say, he'll be back from St. Mary's and he'll say, "Oh, they conspired to lose 1-1."
I
Which,
mean, this is
yeah.
this is another game that felt like a loss, quite frankly. We took the lead within 6 minutes. Who else other than superstar Jack Marriott? Go and build the statue now. And then, of course, Jaden Wareham, who apparently used to play for us, news to me, scored in the 11th minute. Always going to happen.
Yeah.
My opinion on that is if You know, if you can give it out, you got to take it. I had no issues at all with his celebration right in front of the Redden fans, given the amount of stick that he and his family have had over the last few weeks since he's left.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
fair, fair. Yeah, actually, you're right. You give it and take it, and
yeah, you
in
know,
that
just
spirit,
whatever,
I'll just say,
whatever.
as I said on Blue Sky afterwards, I found it incredibly funny that he was giving it the big one, to the Reading when his replacement had already scored that game and was then on double the amount of goals as him for the season. So
Exactly
I
right.
found that quite amusing. Anyway.
Noah Hunt after the game, we were a bit better than last week with our structure in the second half, especially, and we created enough chances to have won the game. He said we created two or three very good chances in the second half, and we could have put the game to bed, but we didn't. And obviously, we have to finish it with a draw. Those words were printed in the Football League paper, which is available wherever you buy your newspapers on a Sunday morning. I'm saying that for no other reason other than it's a good paper.
Are you literally
So
reading it right now? Is that what's
yeah,
happening? Oh,
read it.
nice. You're actually taking us like around the headlines. It's like
Yeah.
BBC Breakfast right now.
Um, they also had Starman as the returning or debutante, if you like, Paudie O'Connor.
Indeed,
So
indeed.
take of that what you will. Listen, don't want to spend too much time on extra Ross
Well, can
because
I?
we
Well,
have
you've
a
brought
lot of
up Porty.
opinions.
It is true. I want to get to the opinions, but you've
You
brought up Porty and Jaden. So can we
yeah,
talk
you
about
go
that?
you go for it. You go for it. The
All
floor
right.
is yours, sir.
Well, I'll talk about the whole game a little bit, but like let's start with Porty because I think that we can kind of chat about. I think this is one of the most important personnel things from this game was that Porty was back, and that was really exciting and good to see. And obviously Matt Ritchie starting at right mid was also something that we were happy to see. And I think it kind of went in two different ways, and I want to be somewhat positive about the team at the moment because I think that and I'm sure I'll say some negative stuff later, but like I think people have an understanding of why I'm being negative about, Noah Hunt at the moment. But like this is kind of for me, Porty O'Connor, big positive, and Matt Ritchie negative, but in the way that I expected. I did think that Ritchie was okay, probably the best of the players who's played in that position so far. But I think he ran into that kind of problem we talked about last week, which is everyone who's not currently playing in the starting lineup is the best player in the Reading team because they're not running into the same, structural issues and things like that. It's the same thing for everyone run into the channel onto a long ball. So, every player is going to run into, the same issue basically. But anyway, let's get back to Porty O'Connor, who I did think was a positive of this. I thought that, obviously the Wareham goal starts from a Jacob mistake. And so O'Connor's kind of trying to cover at that point. And you could kind of see what his like issue as a defender is, his one drawback is, and that his pace there wasn't quite, what we might have wanted it to be. But again, he's recovering in a tricky position there. And I thought that after Wareham's first goal, Porty O'Connor basically picked up Jaden Wareham and put him in his back pocket and never let him out again. And he was really, really solid in a way that really only Des Williams has been so far throughout the second half, in a way that basically never allowed Exeter to get into the game in the second half. And they really didn't get into the game. I'm all about getting rid of managers now, but I'm somewhat surprised Gary Caldwell's still in a job there because I think they've been on the downswing now for a good year or so. I feel like their form hasn't been great. And they were quite uninspiring, on the weekend. They were really, really poor, especially in the second half. I thought that both, goals were created out of mistakes rather than passages of play. But Noel is right in that the second half was better. And I think that, this is one of Reading's better halves of the season. But again, like we just abdicate so much time in these games. And we should have won this with the chances we had. Jacob's got to score in the box when that ball falls to him. Marriott, you know what? He's scored so much over his XG so far this season that he's going to miss a few. Like that's it's going to happen. That's karma for all of the goalie running out and making a silly decision is he's also going to like put a silly one out. But yeah, I think that we were, better in that second half, but these are again chances coming out of just chucking the ball into the channel, rather than building through passages of play and things like that. And I think that last season, one of the things that complimented Hunt for a lot was versus Sellers, especially his game management, which I thought was always better. I thought that, Sellers was better at kind of just taking every game in the same way and taking the game to the other team and trying to force our way of playing onto the other team. Whereas Hunt's been much more reactive and much more willing to kind of react to whatever the game plan is. And especially away from home, I feel like his strategy was to keep us in games and then push forward at some point. And I think that is a valid strategy, but I think that at times it has now morphed into a little bit of passivity through a large part of a game, and that felt like the first half for me in this game just gone. So yeah, there were some positives here. I think the Exeter were awful, really the worst team we've seen so far this season. But yeah, there's still structural issues, obviously, in terms of how many chances that we were actually able to create.
That passive nature, I think, was a theme and has been a theme of our games for weeks now. And you only have to look at some of the direct attacking that the central midfield players did, probably even at the start of this season, definitely the end of last season, where there were so many opportunities on Saturday where they could have just run at the centre backs. They could have just, created some space for Marriott and the further forward players up front to manoeuvre. And they just are devoid of any ideas at the moment. That it seems like the creativity and the attacking prowess of those, particularly those central midfield players, has been coached out of them, and they look lost. And I think really the direction of the pitch at the moment, is that everyone is lost. No one really seems. I mean, look at Matty Jacob. He looks like a competition winner at the moment. It's honestly shambolic. Ahmed, as much as I like him, two foul throws. Like, I just can't understand it really when these basics aren't being done. And there are very few players at the moment coming out with any real credit in terms of the way in which they're playing. And I don't subscribe to the fact that they're bad players. They've suddenly, they just haven't become bad players. But at the moment, collectively, they are not performing, and they don't have license to play to their strengths. And I've said it time and again, and I've seen comments this weekend from other media people involved in the club. They're saying that it's not a coaching issue. How can it not be a coaching issue? If you're looking at the way the players are playing, how can that not be connected to the way in which Noel Hunt and his coaching team has set them up and asked them to play? It makes no sense to me at all how we are still in a position where, he is unaccountable for this run of performances. 2 wins in 11.
Yeah.
And all the other clubs. And I'm, again, and people have thrown it back this week and the back end of last week and said, weren't you the guys who were saying that, Sellers should have been sacked? Yeah, at that point he should have been, probably, but he wasn't, and he turned it around. I don't see any signs of life in this team at the moment at all, and I don't see how this form, and it is bad form, is going to arrest. Yes, we picked up draws. Yes, someone will say, well, we haven't lost in that time, but to win 2 games in 11, both at home, which were pretty scrappy affairs anyway, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, it's not where we want to be. I put out just in terms of like thinking about Noel versus where we were with Ruben, and again, like I think that both Ben and I are of the opinion that era is over now. You don't look back, you go forward and you find something new. And I almost think that like one of the issues that Noel has made, and I talked about this in the video that I put out yesterday, is that he's kind of taken that Sellers mold and not tweaked it too much, but changed some crucial things that have caused issues. Now, I think that the mid block that we sit in during defense is a large part of that issue. And you were just saying about, the midfielders are the same midfielders as last year, and it feels like something's been coached out of them. What I think's been coached out of them is kind of taking acceptable risks. I was kind of watching back like a Harvey Nibbs video that I made ages ago, and it was talking about how like he takes risks, and he would like take risks to get himself out of position because he thought he could win the ball or do something like that. And as we talked about, we don't really win the ball high anymore. Our passes per defensive action this year are around 11, whereas they were under 9 under Ruben. So really, we're much more passive in that regard. And I think that the issue that's causing is that a lot of like what we were doing in that pressing structure, it has to be reactive naturally because you're reacting with a counter press to what the opposition are doing. And now you can see this in the possession or like where we're having possession, in that we have about 25% fewer touches in the box every game. And a lot of that's coming from with Hunt not having touches in the area in front of the box as well. So we don't have those chances to create and get in there. Now, I think we were a little bit better in terms of passages of play and things like that. But I think that a lot of when we were getting the ball high was when the defense was out of shape because they were trying to build up or something like that. Harvey Nibbs or Smith or whoever it was would be able to nip in, win the ball high, and then we'd get through an attack within two or three passes really and be in on goal. The first, I think the 23-24 season Cambridge game has some good examples of how that would work. So yeah, I think it's passivity, and I think that they've kind of coached this, taking this acceptable risk out of things. And that does make you more defensively solid, as we've talked about quite a lot of times. But I think because like some of the creativity in the Sellers team was made up from the pressing and from being reactive to the opposition in that way, when we've lost that kind of being reactive, I guess that's not being reactive, that's being proactive. You get what I mean? We've changed our.
You get the gist of it.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, but no, I get what you're saying. And I think this is probably a good time to get into listeners' corner, because there is, or for traditionalists, the mailbag. But there's a lot of comments that have been shared with us, and opinions and things like that. So let's have a very brief pause. You listen to episode 435 of the Tilehurst podcast. Did you like that? That was my radio voice.
That was very good. And that was the shortest review we've done in a while. But it's like the first time we've had only one game in quite a while.
There's nothing else to say, is there? We drew 1-1 again.
Yeah.
We've drawn millions of games.
Were you happy with Matt Ritchie?
Yeah, I thought it was all right.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good, yeah.
Was he the answer we're looking for? No, but I don't think anyone is these days.
And then on the other side of things, quite literally, in terms of opinion and the side of the field, what's going on with Paddy Lane right now?
Nice. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's tricky. I think again,
it's really difficult
at how he was played beforehand. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, let's get into the listeners' corner. This is not Ross asking Ben questions.
It's part of it.
That's true.
Over on Bluesky, Valdemar, thank you very much. I like it when you chip in with questions.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know.
Welcome to ZCZ Mailbag.
Yeah, I think it's just a good thing. It's a nice thing.
Yeah.
How much has last season impacted on this season? Is there a psychological hangover like the year after we lost the playoffs? Last year we had a common enemy. It fired us into a rare togetherness. Is that a hard act to follow? Wing and Savage in particular are half the players they were. They are. This is the point I was making about the central midfield in terms of the creativity and not so much the aggression, but the attack and prowess that both of those players had. I mean, has last season impacted? I don't know.
It's not a bad point. I mean, like the emotional release of finally getting. I mean, like you made me record a podcast at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I mean, there was certainly an emotional release, when that happened, obviously. And I do think now though it's been like I don't know. We've had a little bit of time. We can kind of assess things from a football perspective too. But I think that like for me, like where I'm kind of coming from at the moment is entirely looking at it from a football perspective from 2025, basically. I think now you can just take 2025 as a year and use that to assess, where we're going as a football team on the field. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, is it affecting us? Yeah, to a degree. I'm sure, like, for the players too, they have, they probably hurt themselves a lot last season.
There are, when you look at the starting 11 on Saturday, so Pereira, Ahmed, Burns, O'Connor, Jacob, Wing, Savage, Ritchie, Doyle, Lane, and then Marriott. It's basically a new team, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah.
The only argument that I will kind of mildly entertain is the fact that it is a new team and they're
But
still
why
gelling.
Hunt? Why you give Hunt more time and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. To give him more
that's the
time.
only reason. And you know, the kind of the reason why I'm I'm sort of toying with that idea is because of the fact that they are pretty much a brand new side in terms of the starting 11. But
Mhm.
as we've said time and again, there is literally no progress from game to game.
It's a really
You
good
know,
point. Like I definitely well actually yeah what you just said there is also a really good point. Like you want to see progress from game to game as well. Look,
yeah,
I want to I mentioned to you before the thing. I want to bring up Cardiff briefly, and Cardiff have had a rebuild as well this summer. Now I'm not comparing like where we're at resource wise to them. Obviously, it seems like they have greater resources than us right now for sure. So I'm not comparing that at all. But in terms of just like turnover in the squad, only one player who started in their starting lineup in their final championship game played this weekend for Cardiff. He did start as well, but he's 20 years old. So it's a it's an academy prospect that was coming through. And of some of the new players who have come into Cardiff's team, many of them have been academy prospects. And it's kind of
mm,
funny, isn't it? Like I think we agree that under Noel, the players who have done well have been the older, more experienced players who can kind of like coach the younger players through the games. And that's fine to a degree, because maybe you'll get more end line production out of them at times. But to progress the club forward as well as like season over season, you want to see the youth players really trusted. And we've talked about that before. Like I think Ashkar Ahmed has been given a chance under Noel, and that's good to see. But maybe in turn, because of the situation last year or a couple years ago. Part of what gave Sellers a bit more time, I think, when he was under pressure was the fact that he had managed to bring through quite a lot of young players into the starting lineup who, at that time when I was going back and listening to October 2023 stuff, you and I were yelling about Sam Hutchinson. And Sam Hutchinson's been so far gone from my brain for so long because Sellers, trusted the individuals who then, took the club on. So, yeah.
I mean, I just will point out with Cardiff. Obviously, we go to the
Oh, and they're
City,
in
City
third.
Cardiff.
Sorry. I brought them up
Yeah,
because they're in third and they've replaced their whole team as well. And their
they're
manager.
23 points on
Hmm.
third.
Hmm.
Brian Barry Murphy. His last. Well, I mean, he's had jobs since then, but he was last in proper management in inverted commas in 2021.
Okay. So that
So
might be
he's
the
had.
most Irish name ever, too, by the way. Brian
Yeah, I know
Barry
it's
Murphy.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's been at the Man City Academy. He's been at Leicester in terms of a first team coach. But this is a guy who is relatively new to first team coaching. Has had what is essentially 4 years out plus a brand new side, and he's gotten third.
Yeah.
Now, I'd snap your arm off to have 23 points right now. Like we're in the relegation zone, and that is a very, very tightly contested area at the moment. For context, Peterborough seventh at bottom of the table with 7 points.
Yeah.
So
That's and I can understand too, like thinking that we should be, we maybe would have a more consolidation season and a more mid-table season. Obviously, at the start of the year, that wasn't my opinion about where we should be as a club, but have been proven wrong,
yeah,
by this, last month. But I don't think any of us think that we should be a bottom four team at
no,
any
we're not.
point, regardless of like how many injuries or anything like that we have. Like for the size of club we are in this division, we should not be troubled by relegation. And
Well,
with with those players, like there's a lot of players, there's a lot of teams down there that would love to have a player like Jack Marriott. So yeah.
there are. But you know what? The other argument I've seen, Reese, is well, a lot of other teams are struggling. Yeah, they are. I mean, the bottom four at the moment, from the bottom up, Peterborough, Blackpool, Rotherham, and Reading. In another universe, they're top. Another universe. In another
Universe.
universe, they're top four.
Yeah,
They're top
yeah.
four, aren't they?
I my two other predictions for good teams at the start of the year were Blackpool and Stockport. Stockport have now sorted it out and they're up there again, but like
Yeah, they are. They're
Blackpool
fourth.
really.
Yeah.
So it shows you everything I know, listeners. Don't take anything I say seriously because again, it's
But
all a game of
no
opinions.
one predicted this. You coming into the back end of the second international break, and we're in the bottom four. I don't think anyone would
Yeah.
have said that shows you how poor this start has really been.
Well, and
It's
yeah, we talked about it before, like the transfer window. Sorry, I'm interrupting you a lot today. I'm going to mute
that's all right.
myself in a minute and shut up. But we talked about it like before the transfer window is done. Like results are kind of like a hit. It's a free hit. Like just go in there, see what you need with your squad still. Like develop like some passages of play and like show a little bit of improvement week on week. And I think it's the like panic about like not particularly improving for many weeks on after that. And we've seen these long periods that like the club is saying the word unbeaten every single time they tweet or do anything at the moment. Like unbeaten in this many games. We had that unbeaten stretch in the playoff run in last year too, and it was mostly draws and it didn't end up with us in the playoffs. And I think actually that's actually something that's worth clarifying too, is that for me, when I'm thinking about Noel out, I'm very much thinking about last year and all 2025, like I said. And for me, that team should have made the playoffs last year, even with the front line that ended the season. I understand was weaker than it should have been. But for me, that team could have made the playoffs last year. So yeah.
Bobbins, um, writing some good stuff at the moment.
He
He's
is,
he's
yeah.
on fire at the moment. He's got a pen of fury and
Yeah.
a brain of molten lava, and he's just spewing it out
Right. Yes. Exactly.
like
Mount
a
Vesuvi bobbins.
yeah. He's like a
Yeah.
Halloween volcano,
Right. Exactly.
just
Yeah.
all
What's a
orange
Halloween
and
volcano? What's the
just all
difference?
orange and angry and yeah,
Lava's already orange, isn't
yeah. But he's
it?
extra orange.
All right. All right.
Cardiff has never sacked a manager before, allegedly. Ooh, careful. What will it take to sack the current incumbent as the fans are ready for a change? How bad will it get? I think we got to hit bottom of the table,
I
personally.
think it's going to be a little while. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I think that. Okay, so the reaction of the players at the end of the game against Exeter kind of showed me that they know now that like they need to start getting some results. They know now that the pressure is coming a little bit, but
Mm.
I just don't still really think that the management team or the ownership team and the higher ups are particularly looking at Hunt
W-
at the moment. Like they've just announced this open day, right? With the open session training. So I mean, you would imagine that means that all of the coaches that they currently have there, they are planning for them to still be there, in 2 weeks'
You,
time, right?
yeah, I do have to say I'm a big fan of these open training events, though. I
Sure,
really
yeah.
like them.
Yeah,
They're
I love an
so
open
good.
training. Yeah, they're great. I'm just saying like in terms of where if I'm trying to get a
Oh
sense
right,
of like
I'm
how
with you.
the
Okay,
no,
yeah,
no, I'm not criticizing that. Like that's fine. That's good. It's more like giving me a sense of like, oh, so they're not
yeah.
thinking about that at all for the next like little while because they're not just going to go ahead and get rid of I don't think they're gonna like I don't think they're going to get rid of Noel like next week and then go, all right, come on in, whoever it is. And
Yeah,
would
it's a
you,
good
by the way,
point.
you have to do an open day next week.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
so yeah.
yeah, I'd not looked at it like that. That's actually a pretty good point, isn't
Like
it?
if you wanted to take, if you wanted to get a sense of where the owners and the football decision making guys at the club are, I
Mm,
think that gives you a pretty good idea of it. And yeah, but I think you were kind of referencing, in the group chat earlier, I had a kind of like explosive reaction to that. But like my reasoning was more because I just think that it's time to move on from a footballing perspective, and this makes it
yeah,
quite clear that that's not going to happen for a little while. So I do think actually, like you and I, as people who go out and put a weekly podcast about Reading out, we have to kind of take that into context for the next, however long, is that regardless of what we think, I don't think the ownership are there yet,
no,
personally.
no, I would concur with that for sure. Um, Chris Scott, Big C Scott, Big Chrissy, he's back.
He's got his
Uh,
nice Tita shirt still.
yes,
Shine, sir. Shine, sir. Oh, gosh.
signed shirt. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
Look at that.
TTE and RFC latest polls show a major majority want Hunt rightfully out. It's not even close. The stubbornness of this owner and will be the architect of their own downfall. Surely they put their ego aside and see what damage it's doing to keep him, as it will turn nasty soon. Yeah, I think, do you know what? I spoke to someone who was at the game against Exeter, and he said that it was more like there was just more indifference on the
Mm.
terrace rather than, there was a few people shouting, apparently, you're getting sacked in the morning and all this kind of stuff, but it didn't feel like a whole sea change. to that individual. And I think it's a good point about, because we've seen the fans turn against managers. You think about Paunovic.
Yep.
Where was that? I can't remember where it was. When they
Uh,
basically surrounded the coach. Then was it Peterborough? I don't know. I
oh
can't remember.
yeah, gosh, that was awful. Yeah, and Yiadom had to come out and
Yeah,
ask them to move on, basically.
move.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
You don't want
there is an
that.
element. No, you
Right,
don't.
that
And
that
also
is
you
like a
want,
good point.
but you want the ownership to be like, yeah, we've taken this decision and we're moving on. And you want, there are so many voices at a football club in terms of the fan base of saying things, oh, you got to do this, got to do that, and you can't react to everything. But I think it will, those calls will become, is nasty the right word? I don't know, but it'll be vocal, and they will then be forced into a situation because they'll be losing people, in terms of the footfall, from getting into the stadium and going to games and all this kind of stuff. So, I hope that they make the decision before they make the decision because it feels like everyone wants them to, if that makes sense, and they're just
Yeah.
kind of using it as a footballing reason now.
Yeah. Well, you
The,
can't
the
really
facts are
use
there.
the Paunovic, I don't know how long he was
No,
left out on the vine as an example, because that was just a good example of a basically, I was going to say negligent owner, but absent owner at that time, mostly it
100%.
seemed like there was just nobody there who could actually fire Paunovic until he
Yeah,
basically offered his, resignation, as I remember at that point. And look, we don't want to get to that point. I think it's really important to like say that we still, like, regardless of our feelings about the team, like tuning in for every last second of this club and like
yeah.
backing the boys in the stadium and all the noise you can want and all those kinds of things. Those things are still really, really important.
And
And I think at halftime and full time you can make your feelings clear. If that is the case, you've got
yeah,
the right to do that. You're paying customer. But I think we also think, during the game, in the same way that last year, we're not talking about die during the game, apart from the 18th minute. Yeah.
and what is funny to me is that when we did that pod, it was earlier on in the year, and I said, look, I don't support the manager, don't really support the players, all this kind of stuff. I support the club, and actually, that's kind of what I meant by really getting behind a manager and getting behind the players. Of course, I want them to succeed because it means the club succeeds, but actually, nothing's more important than the success of that. And for me, at the moment, Noel Hunt is hindering that success and that
Mhm.
that that process. And you're right. I I want him to succeed. I think he's a great guy, and I would love it if we then suddenly started playing a different brand of football. Players were excelling, we're winning games, we're shooting at the table. Like, I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that, and I'm sure everyone listening to this pod would. But I just don't see any signs of progress at all. Even when Sellers was doing badly, what did he do? Change the formation. And then once he did that, you could see those changes and you could see those players growing into it.
Mm.
Whether he was a good manager or not, it's kind of largely irrelevant. He made those changes, even with this change that Noel's done, which is 4-2-3-1, which is essentially a 4-3-3. There hasn't really been any signs of progress in that time. So yeah, it's a good point from Chris, really.
So that's a good progress from you, though. I'm very proud of you. No, recognizing that a 4-2-3-1 is also just a freaking 4-3-3, just with a slightly different focus. Anyway,
It's, it's
look
because
at
I've
you.
been hanging
You've
around with
learned
you.
so much
I know. Well,
from
like,
me through
see,
the years.
you're
Yeah,
never too old
very.
to learn, are you? If Hunt stays, this is from Dex, by the way. If Hunt stays, but we had our best defensive lineup available, how would we be doing it? Would it be O'Connor, Williams, Yid starting and assuming no other injuries? Would we be winning these games? Not saying good football, but defensive mistakes have cost us a lot. I mean, that's a good question. Defensively, what's our best lineup?
Yeah, that is a really good question. We were talking about that earlier. So I think that there's been, debate around Jacob's performances so far. I think that, at Hull, he was typically kind of like a touchline, dashing up and down, like sort of all action fullback, but he was meant to be a pretty good defender. I think that so far he's been mixed in that regard. So I think that, for me, if I'm thinking about what the defense is going to do, most times we have with the 4-2-3-1 sent both fullbacks up a little bit. So if you're going to do that, then you send Ahmed and Garcia. But if you're going to send one or the other, I would probably start Dorset at left back, and then you probably go with Williams and O'Connor. But I don't mind Burns. I think he's fine. And then here's a question: would you, if you're going to put Dorset at left back? Would you put Richie at right back with knowing that he now has license to get really far forward? Because, Dorset, what makes Dorset so good as a left back for me is that he can do the stuff that like makes him, where he jumps forward. He's actually better at that than I originally thought he was. But he's very good at stepping back into a back three, like if he needs to, which lets Richie go forward.
Well, I mean, ironically, I didn't think I'd be saying this in October, but we've almost got too many options at right back now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you could fill the back four of right back.
And Yiadom was decent in his little 45-minute cameo. Yeah,
yeah, he was good. He came on for like 7 minutes or whatever on Saturday.
Yeah.
Given all of the options available, I mean, Ahmed needs to be taken out pretty quick. I was really, really impressed with him at the start of the year, but as I said, you go back to those two foul throws.
I think he's doing okay. And I think that Abrafa was just showing some like repeated defensive lapses at the start of the year that meant that somebody had to come in. I wouldn't be surprised if Yiadom gets a start soon, but I would be a little bit concerned with pace in the back line if you start, with Yiadom, O'Connor, Des Williams, and whoever else. Just because O'Connor's the youngest of that group and he's also the slowest. So yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned about that.
Good question though. Very, very good question. Nick Knight, JJ has zero experience as a CEO, but he has played the best part of 600 professional matches. I had no idea he'd never made a game for Wales.
Had he not? Oh, okay. Well, but Wickham spent a lot of time in League Two, right, in the last 20 years or so.
I mean, you surely get a look in, don't you?
Yeah, I mean,
for consistency purposes.
You're the one who watches more Wales. I guess you would know more than me. I feel like they've got a pretty decent team. Wales have been in the last, well, I mean, I know the last 3 or 4 years haven't been great, but before that, Wales have been as good as they'd ever been in my lifetime.
Yeah, true. They had.
Yeah.
Anyway, to my knowledge, he didn't play for Wales. I'll double check that, but I'm sure he didn't. He must, in capital letters, be able to see what fans can see. Tactics, style, defensive and attacking shape, and game management are below what is required at this level. A better manager sorts it. Yeah, look, we had quite a big debrief of the video that Noel Hunt and JJ did together a couple of weeks ago. I would be very surprised to see how their relationship is. I'm not trying to stir the pot before people say things, but
sounds like you're trying to stir the pot, Ben.
Yeah, sounds like someone who's saying they don't want to stir the pot, and actually they are stirring the pot.
Right.
I just feel
don't know how this pot keeps getting stirred.
Yeah, who does that? Who lights a firework and just throws it away? I would be very surprised to see what their communication is like on a daily basis. Is what I would say.
I don't know. I think it's weird. Like, right, I think Joe Jacobson is from a similar era of football to Noel Hunt and Michele Ledgerwood. And so I think that okay, so like for many weeks this year, I've been kind of saying there's no style with this kind of play. Okay, you can kind of see what's going on now. The team are basically trying to chuck the ball into the channel early and long. And if they can't do that, they'll try and build outside. If that doesn't work, they'll recycle and go around. They're really poor at trying to get the ball into the middle, which is something that the 4-2-3-1 has been trying to fix, and instead what it's done has made Kamari Doyle invisible. But in any case, that sort of chucking the ball into the channels, chasing after it and getting a quick cross across the front of goal, kind of like the Marriott chance that was missed this weekend, but was a great example of what it is that I think Hunt actually wants his team to do. Something you used to see kind of like all the time in that sort of, early 2010s, mid 2010s era. And, that was an era that all of these guys played in, and they know that it can have success. And I think that they, because it's down in the lower leagues and you can still have success with some more basic play styles. And Phil Parkinson's taken Wrexham up with, a chunk of change, but also a pretty basic play style throughout. And I think that they won't think that, the play has to be so much more cultured or whatever it is to be successful. So I think that, as we talked about before, with Joe Jacobson. I'm happy that we're giving a guy who's had a lot of time in the EFL a first time at a job like this. We just seen Jack Wilshere coming in for Luton, and the guy that you
That's a
said.
crazy decision, by the
But
way.
but
That is a
this is what
really
this
odd
seems to be what League
decision.
One teams do now, isn't it? Like they just go and pick up like an assistant manager or something from like a big team or something like that.
Mm.
But anyway, all of these guys, or sorry, I mean, say, and they're more willing to give like first time, like CEOs and things like that a chance. All of that to say, I think that Joe Jacobson can definitely see that the results on the pitch aren't there. But I think that he also comes from an era of football where he could see that this has worked. He played under Gareth Ainsworth for a long time. He was a pretty direct manager as well, so he knows that that can work. And one of the issues that we're having right now, I think that we were falling, there hasn't been a huge change with, the end of last season through now. The style that we play and the games are pretty similar. And I think that it just leads to a lot of like one goal games and pretty tight games that end in draws and things like that, as we saw last year. And last year we were just kind of falling on the right side of the wins, scale, I guess, with that. Whereas this year it's just, it's tipped the other way. And when you're kind of like, you're setting up your strategy to only, keep it tight and only get a few, you could run into those issues. So yeah, Joe Jacobson probably thinks that the results aren't there, but I could see why he would think that things could turn around.
John House, uh, is Hunt being questioned by local media anymore? All I see is bland, unchallenging interviews. Do the local press / Della speak to him? See nothing on social media anymore. Um,
We don't really know, do we? I
yeah,
mean, who's
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows, do we? I think
No.
that, Hunt is someone that has been around the team for a long time, had pre-existing relationships and things like that. And thus, there's a lot of people like us, whenever we criticize Hunt, we also say, and we always wanted him to succeed. Like we always say that, whereas like we weren't saying that about Ruben. So I don't know. Like I think that I think there's a lot of like people who feel a bit bad about having to be mean about who is, from all accounts, a really nice guy as well as being a club legend.
Yeah, I mean, I know that James Ershaw obviously has left, but I can't
The
remember. Is it the
Chronicle.
Chronicle?
Yeah.
Chronicle. I was getting confused with the Post, but I don't think the Post exists anymore.
No, they don't.
Um, so I don't think that they have officially recruited his replacement at the Chronicle, but he now works for the club. So whatever challenge and kind of spotlight was being shone there. There's some other guy from some radio station, GBR or something, I don't know.
Mm.
And then you've obviously got the BBC Barks guys who are BBC Barks guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just leave it there, really. Like it's not. I get what John's saying. It felt like, particularly when we moved to the Madstad, there was just local press all the time, and I don't know if that was because it was obviously here at the time, but it just felt really prominent and really like can't remember the guy's name. I can see his face. He had a moustache. Clive
Okay.
something.
Oh.
Don't know. I can't remember. But there was a lot of people involved in the club and writing about them and doing stuff for radio and all the rest of it. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist now, but it just doesn't seem to be at the forefront of how football is. And we've talked to death about Sky Sports and the way that they present football. And it's like they'd rather have a bunch of celebrities doing five-a-side than they would talk about the plight of clubs in significant situations, us Sheffield Wednesday, Morecambe, all that kind of stuff. So, football generally, football media is very geared around a very elite group of clubs and players and ideas. There's no real, doesn't seem to be a lot of local media in football these days. Anyway, I might be wrong. But for
Local
Reading, it
media is
doesn't seem
having
like that.
trouble everywhere.
Yeah,
I think it's a larger issue. I mean, like it's certainly having trouble over here. And I think, if Sim was here, he'd tell us about what it's like in the UK as well. So apologies for my lack of knowledge, but I think that
well,
it's
he's
just,
not here, so he can just shut his face, can't he?
yeah, exactly. But anyway, I
Shut
think it's a
your
wider
face, yeah,
issue.
rah,
I,
yeah.
it's worth noting though, right now that it does seem like it's a little bit hollowed
Yeah, it's
out
bad.
in that regard. And
Yeah.
and it's interesting because it's at a time when, Kuig has come in and he's a guy that likes messaging and likes branding and all of these kinds of things. So, um,
Mm.
like there doesn't need to be a counter narrative to the club. That's ridiculous. But it's a football club. We all want to support them. And most of the people who are writing about the club are supporters. So they
Yeah.
want the club to do well. But yeah, you always want to have some independent voice.
RFC Martire, basically in a nutshell, Ross, can you make sense of the style of football that Ross is supposed to Ross? No, Ross, can you make sense of the football that you're playing and the style, please? You know what I'm trying to say here. I've messed it all up. Sorry for that. Basically, can you make sense of what Noel's trying to do?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it, and I'll just touch on something else real quick. So I briefly mentioned that like a lot of what we're trying to do is put a ball into the channel early, so into the half space for one of the wingers or Jack Marriott to chase onto. And if that doesn't work, it's usually coming from wing, by the way. And if that doesn't work, we'll start building in the wide spaces.
Mm.
We'll recycle the ball. We're not actually that bad at holding possession. We're just not that great at being incisive with said possession if the opposition's got themselves set up. The issue that I'm finding with Noel versus Hunt is basically where we set the defensive line, and we're setting this sort of passive mid block under Hunt, and basically that's allowing teams to come much further up the pitch before we start interacting with them. And as I was saying earlier, I just kind of think it's an issue that a lot of our possessions start further back on the field than they did under Sellers, basically. So we let the team, we let the opposition have the ball for longer under Hunt. That's shown through our passes per defensive action being about 15, 18% lower. And then by the time they've brought that ball onto us, we've got further to go. I also think, and I keep saying this, and I'll eventually work out what it is that I actually mean. But I do think there's a Lewis Wing thing going on. And I don't know what it is exactly, but I want him further up the field. And maybe you're kind of like getting onto it with what you were saying earlier about like the stuff being coached out of the midfielders. But like last year, Savage had 3 or 4 goals by this time in the season. And he's just not in position to shoot. Right. The wingers aren't in position to shoot as much. Yeah, that's what I think is going on.
I mean, it sounds like you're the kind of guy who also thinks the moon landings didn't happen. If you think there's a wing problem, so
Right. Yeah. No, I really love Lewis. By the way, when I say Lewis Wing problem, I don't mean for any, he's still number one name on my team sheet every single week. I'm just like
is it?
wondering, is there, oh yeah.
You putting him number one, are you?
Yeah, he's the keeper. But like, no, yeah, Hunt goes in first thing every week. No, Hunt reborn, Jack Marriott. No, Wing, I just like there's a part of me that would like to see him freed up to be a bit more creative higher up the field. And I could be wrong, but that's just my sense right now.
Okay. Um, Mark, unlike you youngsters, how old do you think I am, Mark?
Hey, take the compliment and run. I'm too used to being called a kid as a derogatory thing, so you go ahead.
I've spent more of my life watching this in the bottom two divisions.
Yeah.
So have I, Mark, actually. Not top trumps. Right now,
Yeah.
my expectations are zero. All I want to see is some entertaining football with lots of energy and desire on a pitch. Sounds like you should support a European club, mate, if that's what you want. Champ looks a million miles away. He's right. It does. I mean, it is. It's basically a legal way at the moment, isn't it? In
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
the position. I mean, again, I keep saying this, but when you look at the top of the table, it's currently occupied by Stevenage and Bradford. And
Yeah.
there is no way that on paper you're telling me that as a club we can't compete with that. Honestly, it does me in every time I look at the league table at the moment. It just absolutely fries me.
What you
Yeah, I
do.
mean, look, I think we all want some sort of entertainment here. Again, I read people saying, "Oh, it's not about entertainment; it's about getting results." But we're not even doing that.
Yeah.
So, the games that we have won have not been through the skill or the fact we've been the better team. It's because we've kind of just sort of not fluked it, but you know what I'm trying to say. He's
The
right.
two wins
Like,
that we have were not, the best. There are definitely like you could argue with like some of the draws that we should have won those.
yeah,
But like at the end of the day, like those expected points still have us really far down the table. Someone on Blue Sky gave me a good, let me pull it up real quick. Here we go. Oliver Mantell. Thank you, Oliver. So he said we're eighth in League One for accurate passes, 12th for possession, but only 16th for touches in the opposition box. So, by the way, I was saying, if you remember, our number of touches in the opposition box is down about a quarter from
mhm.
the time under Sellers. So we're 16th now. So it gives you a sense, right? We've gone from being a decent team in terms of getting touch in the box to a not such a good team. 18th for corners, 21st for XG, 22nd for accurate crosses. One of five teams not awarded any penalties, which makes sense because we're not in the box. So he says, i.e., we're passing the ball around, but we're not really doing much with it. So anyway, I just thought, yeah, good summary
It's a
of
good stat. It's a
yeah,
really good. We say 16th for opposition or touches in the
16th in the
opposition.
league for touches in the opposition box. Yeah,
Shambolic, isn't it? Really, when you
with
consider
the
the
hottest
wealth of
striker in the
shooting.
league.
I know,
Yeah, yeah,
I know,
yeah.
and look, where would we be without him? Bottom.
I
Simple as
mean,
that.
yeah, we said this
We would
before
be.
about like not having Sam Smith, but
Yeah.
like this is kind of like, like during that period where Sellers wasn't doing well, he didn't have Smith for a lot of it, and Lewis Wing's one of his legs was in like cryo freeze or something at that time. So he wasn't really. I remember the first game of the 23-24 season, and Lewis Wing was moving like a Barbie doll. But yeah, Smith wasn't available for a lot of it, and I think like you're saying, like Marriott is playing so well right now, but 6 goals, he's on like 1.7 xg or
It's
something like that.
ridiculous.
He's
It's
going to
better than the
regress
whole
to the
team, right?
yeah, unfortunately, he is going to regress to the mean a bit though. And what does the team
Mm.
look like when that happens?
Matthew Hopkins, Noel did a great job last season, built on Sellers' foundations by solidifying the defence. This season was always going to be harder to rebuild a playing style. Unfortunately, with enough time this year and with no signs of progress, it's sad to say it's too much too soon for Noel. Yeah, I mean, I think people are coming around to that idea. And again, we're not here to, wash the brains of people and go, you've got to think this way. Like we like challenge, we do like challenge. And even today, someone said, look, I want to write an article where I make a case for Noel staying. Great, like that's
We need
brilliant.
that right
As I
now too.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, to balance it. We always welcome those different opinions, but I'm 100% team Matthew with that. I agree.
Mm.
I really, really do.
I think the chickens are
Final
coming home
one,
to roost a little bit with the making the team more defensively solid
yeah,
last year. Is that again, like you coach that risk taking and just try and keep it a bit more, coach them to keep it a bit more solid. And now next year, you've now got to get back into, the habit of being a bit more early season, taking risks, getting points on the board again. And with like, who is it? Is it Stevenage and who else was it you mentioned who is up top right now?
Bradford.
Bradford, yeah, who have come up from League Two, right? Winning's a
Yeah.
habit, and whatever it is that you do, but winning's not unique in that regard. Like everything you do in football, it can be a habit, and if you get into the habit of taking fewer risks and being a bit more passive in your defensive style, then eventually, those things are going to come to tell. So yeah.
Mm. Um, Final one. There was another one from Georgie Dawes who always chips in every week, and we really appreciate that. It was just basically saying that the complete absence of a midfield is completely unacceptable. It's exactly what we said earlier on. He's right. Like it's absolutely shambolic, the midfield. And again, it's not because they're bad players. It's just because there's no direction there. So yeah, really, really good point. The final one's a little bit trickier. And we might get in trouble from certain individuals if we talk about other managers coming in, but we're going to do it anyway because we don't care. Um, John Pryor, who would be your top three choices to replace Hunt? Top three. We could probably do a combined three, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you three right off the bat, but yeah.
Go on, then.
My top three would probably be my top one is Luke Williams. My second one would probably be maybe Matt Bloomfield, and then my third one would be I genuinely I would kind of be okay with Gareth Ainsworth because I think that the team are kind of like I don't love his style of play, but he's had track record with this like setup of like owners
Mm.
and he knows Joe Jacobson as well. And I think that with the style of play that the team are currently being asked to play, if you're asking a manager to come in midway through the season, trying to change everything about the style of play can be a complete disaster. Kind of think about Ange at Nottingham Forest as well right now. And so I would probably go for someone who's a little bit closer to what Noel is trying to do. Interesting thing, by the way, when I was looking up all these stats about like how many touches in the box and stuff with like Sellers versus Hunt, their percentage of like long balls is pretty much identical. Like Hunt is not like a long ball manager or like, and Sellers wasn't or something like that. It's just about when they choose to go long that I think is one of the things that, that is different about the two setups.
Well, Matt Bloomfield looks like he's about to go to Blackpool. They're in talks
Mm.
with him as we speak. Lee Williams, of course, last of Swansea City, left in, I think earlier this year he left.
Yeah, and then he was
But
working at the airport or
he
something
was
like that.
working at the airport. I don't know if he still is, but yeah, look, I mean, there are a number. I mean, I've seen shouts from Michael Carrick as well. I
You
think
said
we
that
probably
one,
need
yeah.
someone with some League One experience. I know Michael Carrick did sort of reasonably okay up at Borough in the Championship, but there is a number of people out there. I agree with you. I don't think Gareth Ainsworth would be the worst choice going, given that he's had a relationship with the owner, and a lot of people are
Not my
closely
style of manager
talking.
at all. I
Well,
don't, it's not my style of football. I don't love it. Like it's not like the best thing ever, but I think he'd probably have success if he came in
yeah,
midway through the season.
yeah. So that, there are options. I think the key thing, obviously, as always, is just to to remove the current manager before you start tapping up others. But I think the key question for me is when that happens, does the coaching team change wholesale as well?
Hmm.
Don't know, not sure.
Yeah, it's tough. I want to mention because a few people have mentioned it, and we should as well. The loss of Nigel Gibbs in the summer appears to have hit us a little bit harder than we expected. I think of the coaching staff. I think that one's been I don't know. I guess like whenever you're like whenever you think that the issues are on the coaching side, you're looking for what's different. But that could also be wrong because, like I was saying, if you look at all of 2025, which is pretty much the Noel Hunt era, things are still kind of down through that whole era, pre and post Nigel Gibbs. So, yeah, I think the changeover is elsewhere.
Yeah. We are going to end listeners' corner with that. Food for thought of the new managers. And we're going to talk about a trip to South Wales on Saturday after the short break. Welcome back to the final part of episode 435 of the Tilehurst podcast. We are away to Cardiff City, the Bluebirds, on Saturday, the 18th of October. And he said August of October.
I
Very much
wish.
said that.
Beautiful.
They're going well. We mentioned them briefly with manager. Is it Barry? Is it Barry Murphy or
Brian Barry
Bright? I can't
Murphy,
remember.
I don't know. Pick three
One of them.
Irish names
Yeah,
and
stick
just
them
say them in
together.
whatever order you want. And then you've
Yeah,
basically got there.
exactly right. Exactly right. 47 years old though. I know that much.
Right, right.
They're going well. They are currently third in League One on 23 points. Pretty decent home record. They've won 4 out of 6 games played there. So, not quite a fortress, but getting that way. Big turnover in players, big turnover in expectations. Not hugely keen on their ownership model from what I can tell from fans forums, but it's not. I don't think it's quite at boiling point there down in South Wales. I mean, Ross, this is a game that we'd look at and go, that's a loss for us. I
It's a
don't think
tricky
there will
one.
be many amongst our number that will be thinking we'll pick up any kind of result. And again, we're not trying to be negative. We're just trying to be realistic in the fact that we are well off the pace down in 21st and they are in third, and we are yet to win away from home.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a very, very difficult afternoon. Does he, bearing in mind we've had a free week on the training ground, does he make changes to that starting 11 that we had at Exeter this past Saturday?
I think if you're not going to adjust the role that Paddy Lane has, then you probably got to take him out for now and maybe leave him as someone to come on later, for Richie or for Chirwa or whoever that is. I think that he really struggled on Saturday, and I felt a bit bad for him because it looked to me like he was really trying to get into the game, but he was just a yard or two behind at every point. So I would probably bring Chirwa in, and I was quite disappointed with how little time that he got, especially because Lane and Chirwa shared the minutes in midweek as well. So I'd like to see him come back in, and really, with Cardiff, the issue is going to be actually, like breaking them down. They've not conceded many goals so far this year. They have gotten a little bit lucky in that regard, in not conceding because they're beating their XG in that regard. But certainly, like we're not the best goal scoring team, and so that is a little bit of a concern. We want to try to make sure that we don't go down early to a team like Cardiff because yeah, like you said, they're winning their games at home. They don't concede many goals. We don't want to get on the wrong side of them for sure. But again, like going to see a lot of different players versus what you would have seen in the championship last year. And yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, their goalkeeper has faced 12.3 expected goals on target, and he's conceded just 8 goals. So he's 4 goals. He's worth 4 goals for his team right now. So if you think about how much Jack Marriott is worth to his team, 6 goals. Yeah, it's cool.
12 points picked up at home, 11 away. That's really consistent, isn't it? In terms of almost a 50-50 split. 19 goals scored.
Yeah.
Feels like a lot in 11 games. 14 from open play, which I think is that impressive? I suppose it is, isn't it?
Be nice to score a goal from open play every game with no worries,
Yeah, it
wouldn't it? Yeah, no, you got no issues there. You're definitely going to get the first one, and it's whether you're going to get the second one. Yeah.
Star man is obviously Ruben Colwell, 23 years of age, Welsh international, full Welsh international, I have to say.
Mm.
Very, very highly rated this season in terms of what he's been able to achieve. But they do have players all over the pitch, really.
I was going to say
Top
the lad up
scorer.
top, Callum Robinson, is it? He's the one I always
Yeah, they got
remember.
Yusuf Salak as well. I think I've said
Yeah.
that right.
My
Um,
my wife likes get she always laughs when she sees guys with what she calls macaroni hair, and he has macaroni hair.
nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, that's why she likes Callum Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason why they are very close to the top. 1.7 goals a match,
Oh, and
zero
brought in
point.
Gabe Osho in the summer, by the way.
Yeah,
Brought him from
done all right.
Auxerre, which is cool. He went off to the French Ligue 1 for a year, but he's back in League
Yeah.
One.
Um, Look, Chris Willock, um, David Turnbull. I'm trying to think who else they got here.
But in any
Joel
case,
Bagan,
we
Nathan
gotta
Trott. They got some good players. They got
yeah,
some good
they
players, and
got
I
they got a good
think
squad.
they've done very, very well to pull that all together. Um, we we seem to say this every single week, but we need a win.
Hmm.
We need to get a win away from home to kind of break that duck a little bit. We need a win to add to our two that we've already got, but I can only see this going one way really in terms of a home win. I'm not going to be, patronise and ask you to pick to try and pick the score, Ross, but in terms of the overall best case scenario from this game, what can we hope for?
I mean, best case scenario is always that you win the game, right? I think that
All
Reading.
right, you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, well, Reading need to go up early. I mean, like, look, Reading are still like, I still think that the personnel at this team is pretty good, and maybe we should talk about this
Agree. Yeah.
in the next like. Well, I guess we don't have international breaks anymore, but if we have another one, I feel like we should compare the squad at some point because I've been hearing some wild things about Chem Campbell in the last week that I just do not agree with. But like in
Top
any
of the
case.
table, Chem Campbell, by the way.
Yeah, top of well, actually, yeah. Tell you what, I don't know what I'm talking about. Then, do I? Again, for the millionth time, don't know what I'm talking about. Um, Look, I think we can. Cardiff are like a team that are kind of like riding the better, like they can get up to almost 2 goals a game, and that's kind of what's getting them through games, right? Mostly. Like, and so we need to just try and make sure that we're not going to score more than two, are we? And we need to make sure they don't get there. And so that's the best case scenario is that basically, we pick up either a 1-0 win or a 1-1. I would like to see, some more development of this ability to kind of whip the ball in from the half space with these balls into the channel. And if we can start producing that kind of cross and that kind of shot consistently, then the team will actually start to move forward, in my opinion, like some because that is, as we talked about a few weeks ago, repeatable success. So that is the best case scenario is that we start to see more of these sort of first time or like balls into the channel and then early crosses across the front of the 6 yard box. That's been Reading's best style of creating chance so far this season. And if we can get that going, then yeah, we might do okay. But I don't think we're going to score. I don't think there's a solid chance we score more than 2 goals in any game at the moment, especially because we produce an average of less than one expected goal per game. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting.
Um, we'll see what happens. Lots of fans making the journey across.
Good night
Suppose it is
out, isn't
across,
it?
really, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Cardiff's an incredible, quite great city.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic city.
Do they still have
Um,
Doctor Who stuff there? Or is that gone now?
what? Why would
Do
they
they?
have Doctor Who stuff?
I don't know. They always had Doctor Who stuff when I was younger in Cardiff. They always did. Anyway, whatever, Ross.
Did they?
Yeah, Cardiff.
Sure, that wasn't a
Doctor,
ridiculous dream you
you
had.
don't know much about Doctor Who, is what I'm
No,
learning.
because I'm not a child.
Right. What? Hey, like, look, you hear him insulting the longest running sci-fi show in living history. We should
It's
leave. We
rubbish.
shouldn't let him slag this off again. Right. Right, let's move on.
He's lost for words,
Yeah,
just in
man.
the same
That's
way
the
that we're
thing that's
lost for
upset
goals.
me the most this weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. He's tipped him over the edge. We that just wraps up episode 435. We
Yeah.
we always try to give you the content that we want to put out. We are incredibly privileged, as I've said time and again, to be able to talk about this to an audience.
Yeah.
I know there's obviously no interaction because it's a podcast. That's the nature of them. But we are very, very happy for you to disagree and tell us. As I said, we've had now two people saying they would like to um, create a counter argument to what we're saying about Noel Hunt being out. That's fantastic. That's what we're here for. We're never going to tell people they're wrong. I think it's great to have this dialogue and this expression of passion for football teams. That's what football's about, right?
Yeah.
But for us, particularly for myself, Ross and Sim, and it's not like Sim really to go on this side of the coin, but we're very much needing a change now for sure. We hope you've enjoyed this pod, even if you've
Yeah.
shouted at your wireless and gone, "No, you're idiots." That's
No, you are
great
right
too.
though. Like it is nice. We do appreciate you guys giving your opinions, even when
Yeah,
you don't agree with us, because like it is good. Oh my God, I know I often feel like so bad when like you guys get your opinions read out and then like Ben and I respond to them like immediately. Like if I was doing that, I'd be yelling so much. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, thank you guys for chatting to us because it's great. And if you want a little bit more on just kind of like what I think the underlying
yeah. Plug your
footballing
vid.
issues are, go and watch the video that I put up this week on the Tilehurst End YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube right now, it's probably right down there below me. So yeah, go check that out. Just kind of a summary of some of the structural changes that I think are causing issues right now. But again, if we're going from that, let's take this from a positivity state right now. What we're looking out for, positivity fans this weekend. If we can force that ball into the channel, force that ball across the 6 yard box more frequently, get the ball down the field more quickly in that way, that does appear to be something that Noel wants his team to do a lot. So let's look out for that. And if we get it, if it works a few times, I'll shut my mouth for a week.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. There is lots more where this came from. There is articles, there is videos, as Ross said. We're all across social media. Excuse me. Apart from Instagram, we don't do Instagram because it would just be pictures of me reading storybooks to my cats.
Mm.
So that would be no good, and probably Ross's dogs as well. Him reading the stories, not me. That would be even weirder. But we're not on Instagram, so don't look for us
I
there.
just just do this. This is what a bedtime story is for me. I'm just sitting there with my tactics board explaining it to people.
Yeah,
It's very
exactly right.
exciting.
And what a tactics board it is. Very nice. Just
Thank you.
mesmerized by it. Have a really good rest of your week. We are a day late than advertised. That's my fault. No one else's. So I'll take the blame for that. Have a really, really good week. If you're going to Cardiff, try and bring us back something at the very least so we can go into next week and talk about that ahead of the visit at the SCL to Doncaster Rovers. Have a really good week. As I've said, enjoy what you can, and we will see you next time. Come on, you Arts.